Let's talk about your MCU hot takes. Whew. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris and welcome back to another video. So today I'm reacting to your MCU hot takes with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 coming out this week. It felt like the perfect time to make this video. Before I react to these hot takes though, be sure to hit that like button and comment down below some of your MCU hot takes. And of course, subscribe and hit that notification bell to help me reach my goal of 75,000 subscribers here on the channel. It would mean a lot. So I'm starting with the super chats from yesterday's live stream. If you guys sent these in, thank you so much. They are going to be first in this video. Jason Cruz, the man, says, Homecoming and Far From Home are the worst Spider-Man movies. That's a claim right there, my friend. I know a lot of people love to crap on Far From Home. I personally enjoy it, but Homecoming is like right on the brink of my top 10 favorite MCU movies, almost in my top 10 possibly. And I just think that they're so much better than the Amazing Spider-Man movies, even Spider-Man 3. So I think this is definitely a hot take, but I do know there's a whole portion of people out there who just strongly dislike the MCU portrayal of Spider-Man. So I can sort of see where you're coming from. Again, I really enjoy the whole Homecoming trilogy, or Tom Holland trilogy, I guess I should call it. I have to disagree with this one, Jason. Kyle says the first Avenger is top 10 MCU. Maybe back in like 2015, but now that we have such a wide variety of movies to choose from, this one definitely falls to the middle of the pack for me, almost near the back half even, and it's not a bad movie, but it's a very generic origin story for Captain America, and you know, it's classic MCU, it's 2011 Phase 1, so there's nostalgia for sure, but when it's compared to the other two Captain America movies, and even other Phase 1 movies, it's not top 10 in my eyes. The next one's from Joseph saying the first Avenger is overrated, so this kind of is a counter to the super chat that we just got. I don't agree with this, because not a lot of people have it super highly rated, so I don't think you can call it overrated. I think that it is properly rated. It's a solid movie, nothing better than that. If someone has it in their top 10, to me that is overrating it though, so that's kind of the way I look at that one. Joseph also says the MCU is overrated, in parentheses, have not seen all. I'm assuming that means that you haven't seen all of the MCU projects. I mean, I don't think the MCU is overrated at all. It's the highest grossing franchise. It's been running since 2008, so I don't think it's overrated. The end of Phase 3, the Infinity War Endgame era, is unmatched. I don't think any other franchise in modern day will reach the monetary success that it had at the box office, but also just the hype and the everyone talking about it. The cultural impact of Phase 1 through 3 is unmatched. No other franchise has been able to build out a cinematic universe like this, so I don't think the MCU is overrated. As much as I don't enjoy some of the newer projects, they've been on a hot streak for me personally lately, and it was almost like they were in a rebuild period. Now they seem to be back on track. The next super chat hot take says Iron Man 2 is elite. I don't think so, but I will say this movie is overhated. I personally get a kick out of it every time I rewatch it. It's the first MCU movie I saw in theaters way back in 2010, so I have a lot of nostalgia for it. Tony Stark's my guy, he's my favorite character, and so I kind of just enjoy this for what it is. You know, it's not a perfect movie, it's definitely setting up too much, but we get our introduction to Black Widow, we have a solid villain, Rhodey has his suit as War Machine here, so there's a lot to enjoy in this movie. I don't think it's elite, overhated for sure. The next super chat hot takes from Dylan saying Thor the Dark World isn't as bad as people think it is. I don't know, I mean, does anyone ever go back and rewatch this movie or talk about it? It's definitely one of the dullest and most boring MCU films without question, so I think that it's valid when people put it so low in their MCU rankings. Like, if everyone's putting it that low, it's probably that bad in my opinion. The biggest positive that movie has is the Thor-Loki brotherhood relationship. And the final super chat hot take is from Mad Max, shout out Stranger Things. Super hot take, Yondu is the saddest death in the MCU. I don't think it's the saddest death in the MCU, but there's an argument to be had, especially the way they set it up prior to the death, where him and Peter Quill are talking and Yondu's like, he may have been your father, but he wasn't your daddy. That line hits me every time, and they have such a sweet moment leading up to his death, and then the whole aftermath where the Ravagers show up and all like the colorful fireworks are going off. It's really impactful, and it's a very fitting sacrifice, so I can see this out. I wouldn't say Yondu's the saddest death. I think Iron Man and others, you know, Gamora has a really sad death. Those are deaths that I think are more impactful, but Yondu, top 5 saddest death for sure. That does it for the super chat hot takes. Thank you guys so much if you sent in a super chat on the live stream. Now we're getting into the community tab post, and I have like 40 or so this is gonna be a fun one. Red Charlie Boy says, Age of Ultron is very underrated. Ultron was such a good villain, and the addition of Ulysses Claw was great. I also think Ultron's underrated, but it's also become the popular pick for everyone to say it's the underrated MCU movie, where now it might be a little overrated by people. It has its issues, you know, in many ways it almost feels like what DC was trying to do at times, where it left these like ambiguous scenes. Like the whole sequence where like Wanda plays mind tricks on everyone is a little weird. At the time it was a little off-putting, entertaining. The movie is a little bit too long, I will admit too, but it has some awesome action in the third act, and I do think Ultron gets too much hate as a villain. Plus, Andy Serkis is great as Ulysses Klaue, so it's a very underrated movie. I think because the other Avengers movies are so great, this one gets the short end of the stick. Double B Edits says, Multiverse of Madness is the most underrated Phase 4 movie. Sam Raimi's style is so fun to watch in a movie like this, and even though the Illuminati was kind of stupid, it was still so much fun to watch Wanda destroy them all. Also, the cinematography visuals are beautiful to look at. I agree visually, the movie looks great. I'm not going to argue with that part. I can't get past how they just wasted the Illuminati, and a lot of this movie just felt so unnecessary to me. I've seen the movie 3 times, wanting to love it each time I went back and saw it, and it has some entertainment value, but it's lower tier MCU for me, and it's a bummer. Like, I really wanted to enjoy this movie, but to me, they should have just made Doctor Strange 2 and done a Wanda solo project, because both of them sharing the screen the whole time made the whole thing just feel a little too bloated for me. Moving on though, the next hot take, the MCU as a whole is still my favorite franchise. Despite what people think about Phase 4, it never really made me give up on it. Also, I do not have superhero fatigue. Fair enough. I'm always going to be excited for a new superhero movie. That's just how I am. Even though we got on a cold streak for the MCU back in 2022 with their movies, it was bad. It got brutal for a second there. And the TV shows, it was like, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. But for me, I enjoy Quantumania and I love Guardians 3, so it seems like it's getting right back on track for me personally. The MCU is not my favorite franchise, I'll be completely honest. It's still high though. I mean, you gotta remember the good old days, you know? That definitely holds a lot of weight. But yeah, Phase 4 was the weakest phase to me still. Avatar Enthusiast says, Ghost is a little underrated as a villain in Ant-Man and the Wasp. I'm looking forward to seeing her in Thunderbolts. Yeah, I think she's still gonna be in it. I saw a report that she might not anymore, but I still think she's gonna be in the movie. It'll be cool to see her. I never thought she was that great of a villain though, just because she wasn't villainous. It was almost like she was just an anti-hero and they tried to make her into the villain. So it was a little weird to me, but I mean, sure, I'm down to see some more of her. Why not? I'm very excited for Thunderbolts. I know a lot of people aren't, apparently. I've seen it on like social media, but I'm excited for that. Thomas Moore makes a really good point here, saying the VFX on a Guardians Holiday Special were so high quality and better than some of the films. I actually agree. I just rewatched the Holiday Special before Guardians 3 and the visuals are really great, especially for a quick little TV special on Disney+. It blows my mind that that looked like a film and looked better than some of the recent visuals in MCU projects, so more power to James Gunn in that Holiday Special, which is just such a delight. But the next hot take is from Toxic Gamer, saying The Incredible Hulk is an underrated MCU movie. I don't know about this one. I think I've seen a lot of people kind of throw this around in the comments, and I don't think it is at all. I think it's definitely an outlier in the MCU. It does not feel connected to the overall universe, and it's so strange to me. I can never really get over this actually, how Mark Ruffalo became the Hulk in the Avengers movies, and then just onward, he played Hulk, and then we have Edward Norton playing him. Like, I guess when main roles like that are recast, it kind of bothers me. It's hard to look past. So because of that, this movie I never really even view as an MCU movie. It's very low on my personal ranking because I never go back and rewatch it, and tonally it just feels all over the place. I'm not crazy about this one, so I would say that it is properly rated as a low tier MCU movie, which most people seem to agree with. The next hot take says Ant-Man and the Wasp is pretty funny actually, and serves as a nice break in between Infinity War and Endgame. I actually agree. You know, it's not one of my favorite MCU movies. In fact, it's probably in the 20s in my ranking, but it is funny. It's not serious. It's not trying to be serious. It literally takes place in between Infinity War and Endgame. The post-credit scene is everyone getting snapped away while Scott is stuck in the quantum realm, so it was never meant to be some serious movie, and that's kind of my thing with the Ant-Man trilogy critiques. Like, they are very self-aware of what they are. They're goofy movies, they're lighthearted family fun, and people go in expecting darker, serious films, which I never understood. Each sort of franchise within the MCU has its genre. You've got the Captain America trilogy, which is like political spy type genre, you know, more serious issues. You've got the Iron Man trilogy, which deals with Tony and technology typically, even war propaganda, stuff like that. The Ant-Man trilogy is not at all tonally related to those. It is very self-aware of this goofy humor, so I can definitely see where you're coming from with that take. But next we got one saying Quantumania was great. The only downside was that Luis wasn't in it. You know what? I won't say Quantumania was great, but I'll say it was a really good time. It's like a 3.5 to 4-star movie for me, and I haven't visited it since the first time I saw it in theaters, but it's about to come to Disney+. But I enjoy this movie, and again, I never understood the overwhelming amount of hate that it got. I think it's the lowest rated MCU movie on Rotten Tomatoes, which again, astounds me because I really had fun with this one. I thought Kang was a menace, and it was cool to explore the quantum realm, so I think it was way too hated in my opinion. I wouldn't say it's great, but I will agree we should have got some Luis, or it's some sort of recap. We're due for a Luis recap in the MCU. But the next hot take says Holland's Spider-Man is the best portrayal of Spider-Man so far. This one's interesting because I think Andrew Garfield is the best portrayal of Spider-Man we've seen, especially in TASM 2, the loss that he experiences, the love that he has for Gwen Stacy. He's probably the best portrayal in live action we've seen, but I still love Tom Holland so much, even Tobey. It's really hard for me to pick, but I think I lean Andrew Garfield as the best Spider-Man, but Holland's trilogy in contention for the best, though it is hard to top those Tobey movies, let's be honest. The next hot take here says Moon Knight is super underrated. I think Moon Knight is super overrated. Most people I see say this is one of the best MCU projects, one of the best Disney Plus shows. I disagree strongly with all of that. I thought it really fell off the rails near the end. There's like a twist at the end of episode 4 that just was so stupid to me in the end, and there was so much ambiguity in the final moments of this show that it really frustrated me. I don't know if there's a place for this character moving forward in the MCU. I really don't. Oscar Isaac was phenomenal, I will agree, but I think it's overrated if anything. Staying in the topic of Disney Plus though, Steve the Babysitter says The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is the best Disney Plus MCU show. The storytelling, how grounded it is, it's all great. This is one that's really aged well for me. I always liked it from the first time I watched it. My girlfriend loves it, so I've rewatched it a few times with her, and it grows on me more and more. I think I'm at the point where I will admit it's the best Disney Plus show. I would say Hawkeye for a while was my favorite, but I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier is the best, and Hawkeye is right there alongside with it. I think Secret Invasion could give both a run for their money though, because that looks phenomenal just based on the marketing, and Nick Fury's finally getting like a lead role in his own project. I am so ready for that. But moving on, we've got another hot take saying Eternals is in my top 10 favorite MCU movies. I just loved it. Sure, it had too many characters, but I just love the story, ambition, cinematography, action, and for the second time, I really enjoyed the characters. I hear you there, you know? The characters, like the group of Eternals, fascinating. Like they introduced some of the coolest characters in Phase 4, whether that's Druigan Makari or Kingo the movie star. There's a lot of characters that I really enjoyed in this movie. Hell, even Richard Madden's portrayal of Icarus was awesome. But just because it had so many great characters, they didn't all get their time to shine, and the actual story itself, like the plot of this movie, way too grand for its own good, trying to introduce these universe-shifting concepts in the MCU. It was doing way too much. Because of that, it is lower tier MCU for me, but I am excited for the future with these characters, especially Kit Harington as Black Knight. I hope we get more of him soon. Moving on though, we've got our next hot take saying Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is my favorite MCU movie purely because I'm a sucker for feel-good. I feel you know, I love a good feel-good vibe, and if you like that, you will like parts of Guardians 3 for sure. In terms of Guardians Volume 2, I saw it opening day in theaters and I really enjoyed it. Watched it 1 or 2 times since then. I hadn't watched it since about 2018 until this past week when I had a whole new appreciation for the movie on rewatch. It is a lot higher on my MCU ranking. I personally love it now, and I think I always did. I just fell victim to letting my mind get twisted by online reviews for some reason. However, I will have a lot more to say about that in my MCU ranking, so stay tuned. The next hot take says the first Thor is the best Thor movie. It has the serious moments, but it's still funny, and Loki makes a great villain. It's not the best, but it's the second best in my opinion, because I think Thor Ragnarok is probably still the best, but it's crazy how looking back for a while there before we got like all these Thor sequels, people would always say Thor was like a bottom tier MCU movie, and now all these years later, it's actually better than 2 of the Thor sequels we got, so that's pretty wild. I agree though, the Thor and Loki relationship is great in that movie, and him as a villain, Loki in particular as a villain, really well done. I love the early Loki in the MCU when he was full-on villain, and then he sort of became an anti-hero, but I always admire like early Loki when he was super Shakespearean and a villain. I admire that. The next hot take here says John Walker is the best Phase 4 character. A well-written character who feels like an actual man, unlike an icon. He showed the more human side of being Captain America. It's not all patriotic and chill. It's a hard job and you cannot be what someone else was. Well said. John Walker was one of the more interesting elements of the Captain America and the Winter Soldier show that we got. You know, at times I hated his guts, the way that he would treat people and walk around like he was all that, but he was so well written. I really hope they explore more of that in Thunderbolts, and I hope that we get to see more of that side of him and like the inner conflict that he has. He was a really well written character, but he's also easy to hate, making for like an anti-hero that added another element to that show. Movie Lover says most of Phase 4 wasn't that bad. I think a lot of it was just mediocre to meh, and then there were a few highlights. You know, we had Shang-Chi, we had Spider-Man No Way Home, and we had some Disney Plus shows that I enjoyed, but a lot of it was like mediocre to literally bad. She-Hulk, Thor Love and Thunder, Multiverse of Madness, Eternals. These are movies or shows that are mad to just kind of throw away. So I think that Phase 4 was just such a step down from the previous 3 phases. That's why a lot of people are a little more critical of it, because it was a step back from the greatness that was Phase 3. Moving on though, Love and Thunder is actually really good and overhated. I feel like this comes up a lot, and Love and Thunder is the worst MCU movie to me. I rewatched part of it, just part of it, the Guardian scenes, in order to prepare for Guardians 3, and I was like, man, I'm so happy I don't have to sit through this entire thing. Turned it off because it was so brutally unfunny. I think that it's properly rated as low. A lot of the criticism of this movie is valid. It's a very unfunny movie. Black Panther 185 says Miss Marvel is one of the best projects for Phase 4. I actually really enjoyed Miss Marvel. I liked the way it started. It kind of lost me a little bit in the middle, but by the end, it brought it home nicely. It still has some kind of cliche villainous moments and just story beats from a lot of the other MCU Disney Plus shows, but I liked that coming of age feel that we got early on, and I'm excited to see more of this character in the Marvels. Quantumania was goated. IMO a top 5 5 MCU movie. Wow, that is a hot take. Quantumania in the top 5 is wild. It's like 17 for me right now. I enjoy it more than most people, don't get me wrong. I had a blast with it in the theater, but I gotta rewatch it to see where it really does place for me. Top 5 though, that's insane. To each their own. Again, I'm not hating on Quantumania, but top 5? I think that's the first time I've ever heard that actually, so more power to you. Ben says Shang-Chi is a top 5 Marvel movie for me. Fair. At one point it was like my 7 or 8. It's fallen back a little bit, which you guys will see in my MCU ranking later this week. I still really enjoy it though. It's just some other movies that have come out since then kind of knocked it back a little bit for me, but I enjoy Shang-Chi, don't get me wrong. I hope we get a sequel very soon. The next one says She-Hulk is better than most movies in Phase 2. This might be the hottest take I've seen in this video so far. So that means She-Hulk is better than The Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Age of Ultron, Ant-Man, Iron Man 3 is even better than She-Hulk. Every Phase 2 movie is better than She-Hulk. She-Hulk to me is like the worst MCU project. It's on the level of Thor Love and Thunder in terms of just being so cringe and unfunny. At least we got Daredevil, that was cool, but this show is a complete miss for me. That's a steaming hot take. One for the books, one might say. The next one says Hawkeye is the best MCU project since Endgame. Look, I love Hawkeye. For the longest time, I even said it's my favorite MCU Disney Plus show, but it cannot be better than No Way Home or Shang-Chi or Guardians 3, which a lot of you guys are gonna see later this week. No way is that the best MCU project since Endgame. Even Far From Home is better. We got 2 Spider-Man movies that are better than that and a bunch of other movies. No way. Spencer says the first Iron Man was good, but is just towards the middle when it comes to quality of an MCU film. I disagree. This is in my top 5 and it's not going anywhere. I know I have a lot of nostalgia and a big soft spot for it, but no way for me. That is a high up MCU movie that deserves the praise. The next hot take is borderline offensive. The Guardians of the Galaxy movies are overrated. For me, they're on the lower end of my MCU ranking, especially Volume 2, which I argue has aged pretty badly. The first Guardians has always been a top 10 MCU movie since it came out. It is such a risk for Marvel that paid off. And then Volume 2, I know a lot of people have hated on, including me. For one point in time, it was pretty low on my MCU ranking. But that's the beauty of movies, watching them over and over again, having opinions change on film over the years. And since this past rewatch, I've really learned to appreciate Guardians 2, and especially after watching Volume 3, so I strongly disagree. I think they are very worthy of all the praise and hype that they get. They're just awesome, and they're different from the typical MCU movie. They're these space adventure movies with this family that it shouldn't work, but it does. I love the Guardians. Oh Mario says, hottest take of all time. Infinity War ain't all that. Infinity War is the king of the MCU movies, so get out of here. Vin Wall says Multiverse of Madness is better than No Way Home. No shot, in my opinion. No shot. Not even comparable. There's like 20 MCU movies in between those two, almost. No Way Home is top 10. Multiverse of Madness is damn near bottom 5. Ben says Endgame was a letdown when you compare it to Infinity War. Strongly disagree. They complement each other very well, and you can watch them back to back like one long movie, so I strongly disagree. It's a lot slower at first on rewatch, but it's showing how the world has changed drastically since Thanos snapped away half of humanity. You gotta kind of build back up to that action in the third act, so strongly disagree. The Cobra Kai Hawk says No Way Home is the best MCU movie. I don't think it is, but I know a lot of people have it there, and I'm not gonna argue. It's the ultimate Spider-Man movie, giving us all 3 of them in live action, swinging together. It's beautiful at times. I love No Way Home. Even though it has fallen a little bit in my top 10, it's still top 10 MCU. The next one says Civil War is better than Endgame and Infinity War. I disagree, but it's really, really close. Civil War is still top tier MCU. Captain America the Winter Soldier is overrated, but as you say, overrated doesn't mean bad. It's just not as good as people say it is. I agree. Captain America the Winter Soldier is overrated. A lot of people say it's the best MCU movie, the best comic movie of all time. It's not even the best Phase 2 movie. Guardians is better than it. So I never understood the overwhelming hype and praise this movie got. I still like it, and it's actually fallen a little in my MCU ranking, but trust me, I still like it. It's just super overhyped in my opinion. The next one says Age of Ultron is better than Civil War and the first Avengers. Look, I'll agree that Age of Ultron is underrated, maybe even underappreciated, but to say it's better than Civil War and Avengers, that's a big fat no from me. Those movies, respectively, did so much for the MCU. The first Avengers is the first team-up movie we ever got of superheroes, period, MCU or otherwise. Civil War changed the game for the MCU. The way that we got the airport battle, the final fight scene, the action in that movie was unmatched at the time in the MCU. Plus, it portrays conflict better than any, with Tony and Cap and Bucky all against each other. You're flip-flopping sides constantly. It is a brilliant MCU movie. So I enjoy Age of Ultron, but it's not comparable to those two in my eyes. Staying in the world of Captain America, the first Avenger is better than the entire Iron Man trilogy. No shot. First Avenger Avenger is not better than the first Iron Man. It is better than Iron Man 2 and 3, but it's closer than you might think. But it's not better than the first Iron Man by any means. That movie rules. Captain America: The First Avenger is more middle of the road. Iron Man 1, top tier MCU. I'll die on that hill. Thanos was quite boring in Infinity War, but not in Endgame. I'd argue he's more boring in Endgame. In Infinity War, he is on a quest for these Infinity Stones. In the first 5 minutes, takes Hulk out of commission, kills Heimdall, kills Loki. How is that boring? Every line that man spoke was instantly iconic. I disagree strongly. In Endgame, he was a badass at the end, but he was way more interesting in Infinity War, I would argue. What If is not that good. I agree. I've seen some people say this is like the best MCU Disney Plus show, which is a wild take. And I know it's like a cool concept of, oh, what if this happened to this character in the MCU? But that's all it is. Nothing more, nothing less. I'm good without a season 2. Like, they don't need to continue What If in my mind. Thor Ragnarok is the best Marvel film. That's a no for me. It's actually not even in my top 10. I think Thor Ragnarok's overrated. Same boat as like Winter Soldier. It's a funny movie, but if you try and rewatch it, the jokes just don't age as well. I get that it did a lot for the character of Thor, and I still like this movie, but it is not the best Marvel film at all. Speedy the Turtle says, Tony is overrated as a character. That hurts me deeply because Tony Stark's my favorite MCU character and he always will be. Could not disagree with you more here. He is the best character in the MCU. His arc from the first film to his death and sacrifice in Endgame is perfection. He learned so much along the way. He's this cocky hotshot to begin with. By the end, he puts his life on the line and sacrifices himself to kill Thanos, and it's beautiful. It's one of the best written arcs in the MCU, and I strongly disagree. Mr. Pickle says Shang-Chi was not funny, smart, or visually interesting. Overrated by a long shot. Strong disagree here. I think that it is funny, it is smart, and it is visually interesting, especially the whole world of Ta Lo. We need more fantasy stuff like that in the MCU, so I disagree on all accounts here. And the last hot take for this video says, Endgame sucks. It's a waste and a nonsensical mess of a film. Have you watched it recently? Because I just rewatched it and it does not suck. It is a top 2 MCU movie. It is a perfect conclusion to the MCU, and it is not remotely nonsensical. They explain time travel in a very simple way that might be a little convenient in terms of getting out of situations, but it's brilliant in that way. It's not gonna have you overthinking every little thing like in Back to the Future, which still can mess with my mind. It's saying, here's the timeline, okay? If I went back in time to the past, that's not gonna affect me currently. It's just gonna create this new branch in the multiverse, essentially, which is way better than the alternative of messing up the entire MCU timeline. It's very simple and to the point, and I actually respect it for that. And with that, I'm done reacting to your MCU hot takes. There was a lot, so I'm probably gonna do part 2 at some point over the summer. I'll post that at some point on my community tab whenever the time comes. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to hit that like button. Again, comment your MCU hot takes down below. Subscribe and hit that notification bell to help me reach my goal of 75,000 subscribers here on the channel. It would mean a lot. I'm very close, so it would be awesome if I could hit that soon. But I have lots more MCU content coming this week, from an MCU ranking to a bunch of different Guardians 3 videos, so stay tuned for that. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.